Good evening and welcome to the program. I want you to picture a scene for a moment. You're standing on a pebble beach in a plush, fashionable seaside town. The gulls are calling overhead, the crisp, salty air filling your lungs. Behind you, the white facades of Victorian terraces gleam in the sun. In one of those buildings, in the finest flat with the very best sea view, lives one of the country's most powerful politicians. But this idyllic scene masks a much murkier reality. That property is not just a home, it's a symbol at the very heart of a political storm that is gathering pace with every passing hour.
It's an incredibly potent symbol, and perhaps a destructive one. We're talking, of course, about the Deputy Prime Minister, who tonight finds herself under immense pressure and relentless scrutiny over avoiding a stamp duty bill of around £40,000 on that very seaside flat. Her method, declaring it as her primary residence. On paper, this might look like a story about complex tax arrangements, but in reality, it's a story about trust, about the social contract between the government and the governed, and about whether there is truly one set of rules for the powerful and an entirely different one for the rest of us.
Let's break down for our viewers exactly what is alleged to have happened, because the details are what make this so politically toxic. The minister removed her name from the deeds of her family home up north, just weeks before completing the purchase of a property worth nearly £800,000 on the south coast. With that single, calculated financial move, a potential tax bill was almost halved. The numbers are stark, and they reveal a great deal. A second home of that value should ordinarily attract a stamp duty charge of approximately £70,000. Instead, she paid just over £30,000. Her team is adamant that everything was done perfectly legally, but the controversy and the ethical questions stem from this crucial point. During the same period, she was apparently telling the local council for her northern constituency that her main residence was still there, while her financial arrangements with the tax authorities suggested her main home was now on the coast.
And that is the very heart of the matter, isn't it? Which version of reality is the true one? It paints a picture of a political Schrodinger's cat, simultaneously resident in two primary locations at once, depending on which official body is asking the questions. She presented two different versions of herself to the state, and while she was being seen enjoying the comfortable coastal lifestyle, her own government department was issuing stern warnings about the curse of second homes and the damage they inflict on local communities.
The hypocrisy is what makes this story so biting for so many. It is breathtaking. One of her own junior ministers stood up in Parliament to speak with passion about the negative impact of second homes, how they artificially inflate prices, hollow out towns and villages, and push ordinary families to the margins. The government has talked up initiatives like Community First to protect first-time buyers. And amid all this rhetoric, the very minister in charge of this brief appears to have been quietly adding another highly desirable property to her own personal portfolio.
And it is quite a portfolio. Let's be absolutely clear. We are talking about 3 properties. The family home up north, which represents her roots and her political base. The taxpayer-funded Grace and Favour flat in London, which represents the hub of power, and now this seaside retreat, which represents a lifestyle of leisure. 3 homes at a time when millions of people are struggling to afford just one, if they're lucky. Let's return to that £40,000 saving. It's vital to put that figure into context. It is more than the average person in this country earns in an entire year. It's enough to cover the salary of a newly qualified nurse for 18 months. It was achieved through what some are calling legal gymnastics, but it leaves a bitter taste because it suggests a complex tax system that seems designed to benefit those who can afford expensive accountants to find the loopholes.
This feeds directly into the public sense of fairness. It reinforces that corrosive idea of one rule for them, another for us. Imagine being a small business owner, struggling to file your tax return on time and facing harsh penalties for any minor error. Imagine being a key worker in that very same seaside town, watching property prices soar far beyond your reach, only to discover that the person who should be protecting you is part of the problem. Does that feel like leadership, or does it feel like a systemic abuse of privilege?
And what makes this so dangerous for her is that this isn't the first time such questions have arisen. There was a previous controversy surrounding the sale of a former council house she had purchased years ago. While she was cleared of any wrongdoing in that instance, it created a backstory in the public's mind. Voters have long memories, and while one incident can be dismissed as a mistake or a misjudgment, a second raises serious questions about character and judgment, and now the stakes are infinitely higher, given her senior position.
In the interest of balance, her spokesperson has been unequivocal, insisting that she paid all tax that was due and that any suggestion to the contrary is baseless. The argument being made is that she must juggle multiple jobs in multiple cities, and that this arrangement is a matter of practicality, not opportunism. But the line between what is practical and what is opportunistic can be a very fine one in politics, and where there is smoke, the public often fears there is fire.
And of course, her political opponents can smell blood in the water. They are pouncing on this. They've launched an official legal challenge to her voter registration in her own constituency, arguing she doesn't actually reside there. If they succeed, she could face the profound political humiliation of being struck off the electoral roll. The symbolism of the housing secretary being embroiled in a row over her own residency is frankly off the charts. There are nervous whispers even within her own party about the damage this is causing.
When you take a step back and look at the bigger picture, the entire point of levying higher taxes on second homes was to curb this exact kind of activity, to discourage property speculation, and to protect local housing markets. When the very people who create these policies are seen to be finding clever ways to navigate around them, it sends a message that the rules are only for the little people. Once that idea takes hold, trust in the entire political system begins to erode.
So this is where we stand tonight. A seaside flat, a £40,000 tax saving, and a senior politician caught between conflicting declarations and a damaging backstory. The real question is no longer whether the correct forms were filled in. The deeper question is whether she still holds the trust and the moral authority to represent the people she claims to serve.
So, what's your verdict? Is this just savvy financial planning, or is it the height of political hypocrisy? We want to know what you think in the comments below. And for more unflinching analysis that cuts through the noise, make sure you subscribe to our channel, Alert View. This story is developing fast, and you will not want to miss what comes next.